Well, brilliant. I just want to officially welcome everyone to this guest appearance, guest lecture by Colin Bedell. Yes! So excited. So I just want to do a brief introduction to Colin for the uninitiated, just so that everyone just like is introduced to this incredible astrology powerhouse. He's one of my favorite living astrologers, like absolutely incredible. I just pinch me that you're here.
Of course.
Yes. So Colin has a brand called Queer Cosmos. So you can visit his website or you can visit his Instagram. And I just wrote down a few quotes from his website that I just had to share because I think it just encapsulates everything. He said, "The zodiac is an all inclusive chronological narrative on evolution." And I absolutely love this because, when we began, we talked about the different types of astrology. I really like evolutional astrology, the concept that we change and we grow across our lifetime, and the fact that we can use the stars as a guideline and also to provide context and understanding and meaning to that experience. And I just think that, this was on Colin's website. This is part of what he really, embodies and believes and teaches as well, which I think is so beautiful. Also, part of the Queer Cosmos mission is to include the LGBTQ plus community in the astrological discussion, especially around relationships and compatibility. And to that end, he has created so many beautiful resources. Colin, you'll also have to share like how people can work with you, all this stuff, but he's got 3 books that I know of. So you've got the book about Gemini, which is in the series of the 12 signs. Got the book Queer Cosmos, the astrology of queer identities and relationships. Amazing. I need to read it. I haven't read it yet. And then you've got the book A Little Bit of Astrology, which I do have at home and I have read. And also a relationships course with the Astro Twins, which are amazing. Their website, astrostyle.com. I absolutely love them. And you do such fun collaborations with them. So this whole idea of relationship seems to be like a really central theme for you, right? And I was so thrilled when you said yes to come and we had our like pre kiki to talk about today, and about how we're really going to dive into the astrology of worthiness, which to me is just all about the relationship we have with ourself, right? So yeah, with that, I just want to give it away to Colin.
Oh,
Well,
thank you, Rachel. Thank you. And I appreciate you like having a thoughtful intro. That's always like, leave it to a Libra, like, let me really see this person. I know what they're about. I know who they connect with. So thank you for that. Yeah, so I will start. It's an honor to be here. And when Rachel, I'll just kind of give the backstory. Yeah, when Rachel wanted to talk about inclusion in astrology, we're like, yeah, let's talk about the positionality of race, gender, class as best as we can, and also look at astrology from a place of, what is worthiness and what does inclusion actually mean. I don't have a monopoly on it, but I can certainly bring some leading research in the conversation and just look at the concept of worthiness from an astrological lens. We're going to go over some 10 guideposts by Dr. Brene Brown because I am absolutely an evangelist. I don't care if the world knows it. I love her. So we'll go over that. And then we're going to go over particular astrological methods to really apply some signposts and guideposts of worthiness. So I'm going to share the screen and I will hit present here. I know how to do this. Okay. Canva, don't let me down. Okay. Here we go. So we can see the title. Yes, it's up. Excellent. Okay. So the astrology of worthiness, but for the star group. Okay. So welcome. We already did our intros. We clearly are led by a cardinal sign. So the cardinal signs, Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn are just like on it. You know what I'm saying? They're just like, all right, so what we're going to do is just a quick little check-in, introduce yourselves, okay? So we don't even need to do that. Thank you, Rachel, for leading the charge, of course. Leave it to a cardinal sign. So yeah, we're going to go over really kind of why the astrology of worthiness, because what was really beautiful in this intro was that each and every one of you kind of already answered it, right? Why astrology? Because it makes us feel like we're worthy to contribute based on what our natal chart is inviting us to do. And then what I think is really beautiful is that you also remarked that its worthiness is almost a relational experience too. Other people are worthy, right, to contribute the way that they feel called based on the instruction in their natal chart. And the fact that that was already discussed from the beginning makes me really happy because, when we're talking about spirituality, if it's all about me, is it really spiritual? Right? By definition, it's about we, it's about us. And so the fact that we were just, pontificating about that is like, yes, I'm with my people. I feel so happy. And then what I wanted to do is just quickly ground us in like what actually worthiness is, right? So this is a loaded word. It's an important word. I first I was introduced to this in my Saturn square. So that was when I was 21, 22 years old, when a Pisces friend of mine introduced me to this TED Talk by Dr. Brene Brown, and it was the viral one that she gave about vulnerability. And she discussed worthiness. So if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend, and I won't give it all away, but the central point here is that in her data, because she interviewed about 15 to 20,000 people. So she's a qualitative researcher and she uses the lived experiences of the responses to observe particular patterns that emerge that have not been discussed in quantitative analysis. Right. So, in her qualitative research, what she was able to determine was that the only variable or the only delta in the research terminology, which like I love, but the only variable that separated the people who lived courageous, connected, and compassionate lives versus those who felt like they had to perform, they had to people please, they would go into emotional stoicism and denial, was the fact that they already believed that they were fundamentally worthy of love, joy, and belonging. So, worthiness is a belief. It's as simple and as complicated as that. It is a belief that we have to make to situate worthiness as our birthright. And the world that we live in, which we're going to discuss momentarily, thrives off of us not knowing that. Okay. So, right here, right now, let's just make a leap in our hearts to imagine, okay, how would my life look different if I claimed worthiness for love, joy, belonging, and success, perhaps accountability, redemption, and forgiveness as well, as the birthright of the universe, as given to me by the universe, right? And so, you may want to think about this as well, where do I externalize my worth? Where do I place it on what the world tells me based on my body, based on my gender, based on my class, based on my physical ability, etc. I love the work of Sonia Renee Taylor, another Scorpio. She wrote a phenomenal book called The Body Is Not an Apology. And she really discusses how a lot of us place our worthiness on a hierarchy of bodies, right? Thus externalizing the worthiness, making it situationally based, circumstance dependent. That's not birthright, right? So we want to make the concept of worthiness, which I also think is a fifth house and Leo ruled conversation, but we're not going over that. But just for the record, the concept of worthiness as our birthright in everything that we do. And if we engage in the world from a place of worthiness, what are we not going to do? We're not going to look for signs that we're not enough. We're not going to try to impress people. We're not going to go into performance and perfectionism, right? There's so much that we could there's so many worlds that can be opened if we saw worthiness as the central point here. Now, what does astrology and worthiness have to do with inclusivity? Well, I think what we're about to go over, and this is just my personal belief, is that worthiness and astrology directly repudiates comparison and scarcity, right? Because when you know your natal chart, are you going to go into comparison? No, theoretically, right? Unless we will because we're light masters. But again, when we know our natal chart and it says, Rachel, you're a Libra, so this is really important for you. James, Sun in Cancer, this is really important for you, right? And when we know this proposal, when we know this invitation, we won't wander or tarry in comparison, right? And so, of course, we're going to have inclusivity because we feel like we belong. We feel like we have a function to fulfill. We're confident in our ability to contribute. So we kind of make inclusivity because we're not looking for evidence to find that we are not included, right? And so that's what we're going to go over is how astrology in conversation with the 10 guideposts momentarily allows us to situate worthiness put into practice because yes, okay, we know it's our birthright, but now let's identify where we trip up and what we want to choose instead. Okay. And so these are the 10 guideposts for wholehearted living by Dr. Brene Brown. And so this is the way that we put worthiness into action. So on the left-hand side where it says letting go of, this is where the world and what happens outside of this beautiful container and conversation thrives off of you and I believing we're not enough. So the first thing we often do when we're compromised with worthiness is we're really enrolled in what other people think. And we're trying to constantly win over people who are committed to misunderstanding us, right? But the worthiness practice here says, no, I'm going to choose my optimized authenticity. Ultimately, what other people think of me is none of my business. unless these are people who I genuinely care about, who contribute and who engage in my life, and whose feedback of me is come from a place of, I want to support you, and this is where you might have missed the mark. Right? My Capricorn moon comes out. But no, you can see that we do care in a certain way in terms of our loved ones and our confidants, what they have to say to us. But we're not committed to convert the critics and the cynics. We're just not. Right? The next thing is perfectionism. It's actually a shame response. So when we glorify or manicure, oh, well, I'm a perfectionist. And so this is where we compromise worthiness, because where's our worthiness? Only if I have everything right. Only if I am immune to criticism will I be worthy, situationally based, right? So we want to choose self compassion instead. We want to know that we're going to make mistakes, we're going to experience setback, disappointment, and failure. That's okay. So we choose self compassion, right? And then another way that we can engage in the compromising of worthiness is numbing and powerlessness. So this is when I'm going to avoid discomfort, I'm going to avoid conflict, I'm going to avoid responsibility, accountability, transformative justice, I'm going to avoid unpacking my privilege, I'm going to avoid changing my mind and just engage in a whole lot of other things that distract me from the work that needs to be done. And so when we choose worthiness, we choose a resilient spirit. We know that we are not entitled to comfort and we're not entitled to certainty. It's a part of the contract life makes with us. So, how can we move forward from a place of resilience, knowing, okay, I might be wounded or uncomfortable in these areas, but I do not have to react from my woundedness, and I don't have to let my discomfort override my critical thinking and executive functioning. I can align with my strengths, I can align with my power. And then, of course, we said earlier that when we choose worthiness, we regulate scarcity, right? Because scarcity is the conversation that basically says, I am not enough, right? And it's our inner critic thrives off of this. We all have that inner critic, right? I, me, everybody watching, listening, right? We all experience of that feeling of, I am not insert qualifier enough, smart enough, educated enough. I don't have enough followers. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough books. I don't have enough. I'm not enough. That's scarcity. So instead, we choose gratitude and joy. And you cannot talk about scarcity without talking about gratitude and joy, because joy and gratitude are deeply connected. And that's why last week I did a quick video about the full moon in Scorpio. And what really blew my mind was the resonance around that, because what I shared was the work of Dr. Brown and other emotion researchers, which was that joy is actually the most terrifying emotion for people to experience. Of all the emotions, yeah, it's joy. Because what are we used to? Disappointment, setback, failure, heartbreak. I'm going to go into worst case scenario, WCS. I'm going to beat vulnerability to the punch by dress rehearsing tragedy and living in the wreckage of the future. I'm not going to soften into this moment. Right here, right? Excuse me, my New York is coming out. I apologize. Okay. But no, so what we want to do instead is recognize, wow, joy is terrifying. And scarcity doesn't want me to go into joy, because then I realize this moment is enough. That's inherently vulnerable. So what do? We actively choose gratitude. And I'm not talking about an attitude of gratitude. The work on gratitude actually says we have to name and vocalize and put it into practice, right? And sadly, when Dr. Brown was being interviewed, she shared an interview she had with someone else who essentially said, all my life, I never got too excited. I never got too hopeful. That way, I wasn't devastated if it didn't work out. And if it did work out, it was a pleasant surprise. So I kind of just stayed right in the middle, right? And then his wife of 40 years died in a car accident. And he said to Dr. Brown, it did not protect me from the grief that I had, because as soon as I knew that I had lost her, I thought to myself, how could my life have been different if I just showed up with more joy to my wife? And it did not protect me from this losing. And we got to talk about these things, right? Is that we are afraid of joy, and we are afraid of softening into love and belonging. And we think that will protect us, but does it really? This is where scarcity comes in. Okay. So then what we're going to talk about is how worthiness is repudiating a need for certainty, right? So that's the, I'll only trust when, I'll only engage in this work if and until, right? And so what we want to let go of is the attachment to a certainty-based culture or a certainty-based relationship. And I love the definition of trust by Dr. Rachel Botsman, who teaches at Oxford University. Okay, so right down the street, Rachel and Darish, I'm sure. And what she says, it's a confident relationship with the unknown. And so what's really interesting about that definition is implicit in its analysis is the fact that you cannot trust unless we are in the position of the unknown. A lot of us think that trust is moving from the unknown to the known, but the research shows the complete opposite is true. We only trust when we're moving from the known to the unknown. It's a confident relationship in that space between the known and the unknown, right? And so when we choose worthiness, what do we choose? A quality of intuition and trust. And I trust myself, I trust other people, and I trust the universe. If that's not where you're at because of family of origin, a trauma survivor, you've experienced collective trauma, who hasn't in the midst of COVID, but of course it's being compounded with personal trauma as well. You're just going to want to give yourself a ton of grace in these opportunities and say, okay, this is where I want to go. This is the North Star. I want to learn how to trust. Okay, so what do I need to optimize my trauma treatment to move to trauma recovery? Really frame your relationship to security and safety, which is a Taurus ruled conversation. We're in the midst of Taurus season right now. So I want you to think about, what security do you need to move from trauma treatment to trauma recovery? Okay. And then halfway through, we have comparison. Oh, Jesus, the thief of joy, right? I don't got to tell anybody what that sounds like because we've been talking about it already. So instead, we choose creativity, right? And I love this idea. And I'm doing the artist way. I don't know if anybody has heard of it. Raise your hand if you know the artist way. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I love the idea from the author where she writes that creativity is everyone's gift from God. Using our creativity is our gift back to God. Ugh, absolutely gorgeous, right? And if you're in that place, are you thinking about what other people are doing? No. you're happy for them. You're like, yeah, you go, girl. Rachel, you're kicking ass. I'm so proud of you. You better make this group coaching. Okay. But ultimately, you're like, what can I do too to shine next to my friend here? Right. But I'm not going into comparison. I'm just letting my creativity play. All right. And now, exhaustion as a status symbol. Americans know this very well. I can't speak for the UK. But Americans know this very well. You know, God forbid we use one of our 3 generous vacation days. Okay. So we want to actively choose play and rest as a function of worthiness. Okay. And I love the definition of play by Dr. Stuart Richmond. He defined it as time spent without purpose. Ooh, that is so good. So how can we play by just spending time without anything going on? That's what play is, and adults play all the time. Okay. Anxiety as a lifestyle is also a function of scarcity culture and not having worthiness. And so that's just this quality of, okay, I'm going to enroll in WCS, worst case scenario. I'm going to immediately go into protection programming, and I will not prioritize emotion regulation. And so I will just forever be at the effect of what is currently triggering me because my amygdala, the reptilian part of the brain, has just been activated. So a part of worthiness is actually choosing, although it wouldn't look like this is something I'm doing right now, a sense of calm and stillness, right? So it's just that prioritizing of, okay, let me take a deep breath. Let me wake up and meditate for 5 to 10 minutes. Let me proactively optimize my stress response system by having a grounded morning routine. Because what that will do is work like a psychic immune system to buffer against anxiety, buffer against setback, disappointment, uncertainty, and all these things. And if I don't prioritize calm and stillness, I'm going to be forever at the effect of automatic habit, automatic reflex, right? Right? So now, last but not last, but close, we have self-doubt and the supposed to, right? So, oh, but I'm supposed to be doing this because I'm a Cancer, or I'm a this, or I was supposed to be doing this because this is what society ascribed to me as insert race, gender, class, physical ability, et cetera, here, right? Especially in work. So that's why choosing worthiness is choosing a meaningful work informed by values, I think, too. And Rachel, you're obviously exemplifying that as well. I'm sure you were like, yo, screw this system. This does not work for me. I want to do something different. right? And we'll talk about that because your natal chart is here. And then last but not least, we have always in control as a quality of lack of worthiness, right? And this is what this is important to remember too as a trauma-informed approach, that if you have experienced again violation, something traumatizing in the big T quality, you do want to feel like you have a certain sense of security and control. That's there's no doubt about that, right? Like, what does it mean for you to have a certain level of personal autonomy? But choosing worthiness actually sort of corresponds to the fact that you can have laughter, song, and dance to release control, right? To go into joy, to go into levity, because according to Esther Perel, another person who I'm constantly quoting, she heard somebody say that dancing is the only physical activity you could do and not be sad at the same time. So I haven't done the research. I don't know if that's true, but like I thought that was really impactful, because say you're in that hyper vigilant, hyper defensive, I'm always in control state, right? What you want to do is go into laughter, song, and dance, because you cannot be hyper vigilant and in pleasure at the same time. So it puts you into the pleasure space. It puts you into the joy. It puts you into a quality of I'm worthy to experience this. And I don't care how other people think. I'm going to do it imperfectly. And that's it. Right. Now, I know I'm supposed to be talking about astrology, but I think when we talk about worthiness, what I wanted to do is just outline what it isn't and what it is, so then we can bring these guideposts into an astrological conversation. Okay. And now we shall go to: how does the sun, moon, rising, and midheaven frame worthiness and help us regulate comparison and scarcity? Okay. So, quick breakdown on the moon, the sun, the ascendant, and the midheaven. I love that, Jane, you brought it up. You said Virgo midheaven. I was like, way to go. I'm like, did you see this presentation? No. So, what you want to know is that the moon sign really governs, it's the crown jewel of your chart. There's no doubt about it. It is the factory settings. It's what you're born as. Okay. And so in this lifetime, each and every one of us are learning to become the sun sign. So if you've read something about your sun sign and said, I mean, yeah, but like, no, right? You may want to read your moon sign, because that's your crown jewel. That's your factory settings. That's where you start. Okay. Your moon sign lets you know how enough you already are, right? And so look at your moon sign as a treasure chest for, I'll use Rachel as an example. Rachel's moon is in Gemini, right? And so what this means for Rachel's enoughness is that Rachel's quality of communication, active listening, perception accuracy, intelligence, teaching, educating, and space holding is not a soft skill at all. It is a bottom line, right? And so, because Rachel knows how to use language in service to making other people feel seen, valued, cherished, understood, and witnessed, right? That is why she is fundamentally worthy. And it's not even necessarily an interactive quality, right? It's just this is a skill that Rachel knows how to do. This is her quality of worthiness. Learning to become the Libra would mean that it's a quality of, okay, and I'm using this in service to justice, activism, a quality of human rights, a quality of relationship, right? So, how are we as experts in personal growth, spiritual seeking, using our skills in service to other people, in service to relationship? Because what does Libra know better than anybody else? The quality of our life is determined by the quality of our relationships. And that the Libras are 7. I know that's why I learned from my air sign friends, and that's what they teach me all the time. And so they're asking me, use your words carefully in relationships, broker mutuality, broker reciprocity, please. Right? Really make sure that in the space between you and other people, there's equilibrium, there's harmony. All right. And then that process of all of us becoming the moon to the sun is filtered through the rising sign. I haven't totally fleshed this idea out yet, so caveat, but I will speak it in real time to you. I don't necessarily believe that we are in control of the way that our rising sign lands on other people. I believe it can be very confronting, right? But I think it's the space where it's like, is this any of my concern, or is this a you problem? right? So like using using Jane's Sagittarius rising as an example, because I saw you nodding like, yeah, right? No, so it's possible that Jane's Sagittarius authenticity, let me bottom line this real quick. Let me let you know left, right, top, and bottom without imitation what the is going to go down, right? Could send people into a tizzy, right? Because who does Jane think she is telling the truth, right? Whereas, okay, and Rachel, the daughter, is like, oh my God, that's knowing laughter. I can't even hear it, but I can see it. So now I'm like, good. Okay, so we're getting warm here. But again, I believe that the way that that lands on other people, Jane, not our concern. I really don't think so. Yeah. And I am never going to tell anybody who is a woman, a mixed race woman, a black woman, a BIPOC, anybody who does not fit the standard majority to be quiet and don't speak your truth. So I'm all about making sure that we incorporate that and express it in our astrology. And you'll probably often find that that's the space where projection is really rich. Other people can project a lot on you here, right? Like just last week, to make this personal, I had a friend of mine who is a couples therapist. And beforehand, she had said, okay, I've never done this before. So just walk me through, help me dialogue, because I might get a little airheady and forget because I'm a little nervous. She tells me that earlier. She's on my Instagram live for an hour. And then not 20 minutes later, somebody responds on the Instagram live on a comment. I am so triggered by how much you interrupted her. You never let her speak. Right? And basically proceeded to say, and she used my Leo rising as an example, because I was just joking that like I broke my ring light. And so I was like, oh, guys, I have a devastating announcement to make. I broke my ring light. And then that's all I did was talk about that. I just asked her questions. We summarized, I did exactly what she said. And that person interpreted my dialoguing as interrupting and projecting. I asked my friend afterwards, is there any truth to this? Because I just want to make sure if there is, it could be my own male privilege. I want to own that and clean up a mess if I made one. And she was like, I had the complete opposite experience. And that's not to say that I am immune from interrupting somebody or perhaps acting from a place of male privilege, but I was like, wow, look at the rising sign in action. Here we go again. And then my friend said very clearly, this was a projection, it wasn't empathy. And I would have told you if I felt interrupted, and I trust her, right? So I want you to think about how other people project their symptoms of unworthiness on you through the rising sign, right? And think about how you can hear it, but don't bring it too close to the chest, honestly. I really wouldn't if I were you. Yeah. And just know that this is the quality of impact. This is the energy that you'll exude. My astrological mentor calls it your astrological handshake. Hi, how you doing? I'm a Pisces rising. I'm not, Rachel is, but you know, that's how Rachel introduces herself is, hi, I'm a Pisces rising. You haven't even seen the Libra sun or moon yet, okay? And so I think that this helps us regulate comparison and scarcity because it points us to our specific functionality. It points us to our specific contribution. So if we are, as they say in America, minding the business that pays us, we are not worried about anything else because we're driving in our lane, right? And we realize I, like everybody else, have a function to fulfill. No better than the rose, no better than the peony, no better than the daisy. Each one of us have a specific function to fulfill, right? And now the midheaven. I take the belief that the ruler of your midheaven is, because it is the area of the chart that's the closest to the highest point, the northern hemisphere, right? And when you think about spiritual or religious architecture, what happens when you walk in it? Everything's pointing up. Look up, keep your thoughts high, everybody, right? The midheaven. Your midheaven sign is your direct access point to your God-given capabilities, strengths, and gifts. Absolutely. Yeah. And the universe providing each and every one of us with creative capabilities. I think, again, using that line from the Artist Way, when we use our creativity, it is our gift back to God. You know, define it however you want, God as you understand it in non-denominational language, universe, source, goddess, whatever feels right for you. But I think the midheaven points the way to, this is how you are meant to serve the ages. This is how you are meant to be so much bigger than you and your time. This is where you're timeless, right? And this is what you can do to help people, because that's really where the universe operates as service. And so that's what the midheaven can help you know. And again, I'm sharing this because I think it can be immediately overwhelming when we're in this work to figure out what the could I say that someone else hasn't said? What can I do that is even remotely helpful or impactful to anybody else? What? Right? And so that's where your astrology comes in. It says, well, your midheaven over here says that during this time of year and with these people, you will work the best. And if you incorporate these values and themes, don't be surprised if your chart is lifted to the highest, right? And then as it's lifted, that process of experience and transformation is going to be filtered through your rising sign. So keep that in the back of your mind in case you are doing something public, visible with others for the first time, or just keep that in your focus, but don't dwell there too much because that it's almost as if your rising sign belongs to other people. I really friggin' believe that, right? And then the moon is just, again, where you go when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, or where you're in total joy, right? So you're forever responding from this really matters to me. And I'm going to put my whole emotional body into this. That's the moon. And the sun sign is pointing to the way to the process of becoming, to the energy, to the archetype that you're radiating out onto all people. And something to note here, because people ask me this all the time, and I'm sure you've thought about this as well, is, oh, this is great. So should I be my moon or my sun? Right? Rachel's given the knowing laughter again, okay? And what I try to tell folks all the time is this is not about alternation. This is only about integration. So when you're thinking about your astrology and your functionality there, do not think of it as alternation. It is entirely integration. Okay? And so now what I wanted to do, oh, I think I did this twice, excuse me. I made two of them. So as personal growth students and practitioners, where can we astrologically locate our clarity of values, our convictions, and our habits for optimized well-being, right? Because again, we talked about some really heady, spiritual, emotionally activating things. And so then I think now what I want to do is talk about applied behavior and aptitude. How do we put this into skill set? How do we put this into operationalized instruction? Otherwise, it's just abstract intellectual information, right? So I kind of have like a three-step methodology to this. And the first one has to do with the fact that when you look at your sixth house, okay, notice what zodiac sign rules your sixth house. And if any of you are like, I wouldn't even know where to do that, right? You can go to astroseek.com, put in your birth chart information. And then on the right hand side, there's going to be a little like technological space that says exactly where everything is. You're going to see numbers at the bottom, and they're going to be 1 through 12. Look at number 6. Look at the zodiac sign next to number 6. And that's the one that's going to tell you what zodiac sign rules your sixth house. Okay, so astroseek.com will tell you exactly the ruler of your sixth house. And I believe the sixth house is super important because, and this is thankfully going on in our personal growth space, it locates exactly what we need to do on the level of routine, what we need to do on the level of ritual to make this information, as the Course in Miracles says, go the distance from the head to the heart, right? Because yeah, we could talk about this all day long if we're not integrating it. That's why Rachel has an integration week, and that's why here I am ruining it. No, you'll do it again. I'm kidding. I know. You'll have your integration week, but right, it's a matter of moving it from the head to the heart. I believe that's in the sixth house. If you have planets in the sixth house, that's super important. And then also what you want to know is what planet rules the sign that rules the sixth house, right? So for example, we can use my chart as a case study here. Capricorn rules my sixth house, right? So naturally, a grounded, disciplined morning routine would optimize my stress responses and protect me from acting out of automatic habits, patterns, and experiences there, okay? Because Capricorn rules my sixth house, I have to go, well, where is Saturn? Because Saturn was Capricorn. Saturn is in my fifth house of creativity. So it also is important that I have something in dance or joy or listening to music, getting my creative visual engines running, right? And then the aspects that Saturn is making my astrology confirms that too. But what you just want to know is what zodiac sign rules your sixth, what planet rules that zodiac sign, where is it in your astrology, and what story is that telling? Because that's how we take this information from abstract intellectual thought and bring it straight down to our emotional nervous system, right? There's a line, I don't know who said it, that knowledge is a rumor until it lives in the bones. This is how we make knowledge live in our bones and not just stay as a rumor. Okay. And then I put Venus up here because, according to the work of Dr. Brown, when we want to go into our world and engage from a place of worthiness and say, okay, I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to help people use astrology to get their shit together in other ways, right? I'm going to optimize their relational functioning and relational aptitude. Let me do it, right? So, what you want to know is that Venus is the ruler of your values, and it's extremely difficult to do this work without clarifying what your values are, right? Because then what happens when we're in moments of prolonged uncertainty, anticipatory grief, vulnerability, and ambiguity? We go right to the protection program, worst case scenario, and we respond to the level of our most undisciplined habit, right? So the Venus placement tells you here's what your values are, and your values will guide you in moments of uncertainty to righteous living. I cannot stress the importance of values, right? And what I've done when I started to do the values exercise is I made a quick little like Word document and put them on the back of my phone. Because where are we making the most decisions? Right here, right? And so when I have my values that say autonomy and connection, I'm like, damn, okay. Autonomy is my value. Someone just asked me to do something. I did about 400 things today. I haven't had any Colin time. What would autonomy do? Thank you so much for inviting me. I want you to keep inviting me. I just need some space to decompress. I'm going to take the night in. I love you so much. I'll let you know when I'm done. Have a great time tonight. Right? But that's how values guide us, right? Professionally too, right? If things don't line up with my values of autonomy and connection, I'm not going to do it. And God bless, there might be a better astrologer to help with that. But no, I'm not going to advertise beauty products. I'm not a beauty astrologer. So it's like we want to always have our clarity of values on lockdown because it guides us in security towards uncomfortability, uncertainty. It allows us to really operationalize specific behavior to receive security, because there is a quality of Venus also kind of applying security. And I think what Taurus teaches all of us is that, yes, of course, there's conversations on financial security and personal security, and there's the conversation of what is a greater pathway to developing security than knowing your values, putting them into practice, and having the existential realization that you are who you say you are. I don't know of anything more secure than that. And then what happens with worthiness, right? I got nothing to prove. I don't got to pretend. I don't got to people please. I don't got to perform. I also don't have to walk in and announce I'm what. No, my energy will do all of that for me. I just stay grounded, present, available, from a place of grounded confidence, as receptive and humble to others as possible, and we're good. Right? So think about how your values, as informed by your astrology, inform your whole life. Right? And something else on values, which I think Rachel would eat up, but maybe the other fixed signs here are like, what? Right? So Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius, don't get mad. Okay. But the quality on values actually says that they should be in polarity to each other. Yeah. Yeah. So deep breath on that, because life exists in contradiction, opposition, polarity, dilemma, dialectic tension, right? And so if our values do not hold the juxtaposition, are they holding reality with a capital R? Right? So that's why I chose autonomy and connection. I don't want to be alone all the time. I don't want to make it all about me. I don't want to live outside of a calendar. No way. I also want to be committed and engaged with the people that I love. I want to be available to my friends, to my coworkers, to my family members. Absolutely. And I also sometimes just want to go for a drive for 3 hours and put my phone off silent. Autonomy and connection, right? So it's about giving ourselves, especially Libras. Libras can teach us this gorgeously. Giving ourselves like the acceptance and permission to be a paradox, to hold the balance of I want this and I want that. Yes, they cancel each other out. Deal with it. Not my problem, not my monkeys, not my circus. You know what I'm saying? And so when we allow ourselves to hold polarity values, I think we can expand our repertoire extensively. I really do. And because we can like nerd out on this astrologically, right? So I just got this Mercury statue yesterday. I'm a big fan of like little planetary statues and things because Mercury's the ruler of Gemini. I'm a Gemini stellium. Mercury just entered Gemini. And so Mercury has this little staff situation here, right? It's spelled Caudaucs. I think it's pronounced caduceus. I don't know. I gotta hear that in a YouTube video. Anyway, so what I learned about this is that this center is called an olive branch. Now, and when do we use that in conversation? Let me give them the olive branch. Let me, I know, Darish, right? And then the two snakes here represent a polarity. They were fighting. Mercury, whoosh, boom, put the olive branch down. And then this symbol is reflective to how we use communication to bridge opposites. I'm learning this like eating a Reese's peanut butter cup. Like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. Okay. So that just happened yesterday. And that's, I think, why values need to be in polarity, because we have these two snakes. We have the dialectics within us, and that's okay. But it's something to hold in our minds and thinking. And especially as practitioners of personal growth, if our clients go, do I want to be an entrepreneur or do I want to be a mother? Right? I'm sure we have somebody here who can connect with that. Do I want to be in a relationship or do I want my freedom? What's this or? It's end, right? So that's where I think values come into play. Next, we're going to talk about Neptune. Okay, we have a Neptune influence person here, but Neptune is super important, everybody. So Neptune has to do with our convictions, our quality of convictions. All right. And so in order for us to really participate in our life from a place of worthiness, we need our clarity of values and our convictions. And I want you to think about, what are the convictions that help you become the person you want to be? Right? The way that I look at values and convictions is values help me choose behavior in the present in service to the conviction of my values, in service to the conviction that informs the life I'm living for. Right? So it's like, okay, autonomy and connection. I'm going to choose specific value, a specific behavior in the present that support that. And my conviction is, if I keep myself as radically self-accepted and almost emotionally exposed with other people, I will always be safe. I will be connected. I will be honest with myself, and no act of courage goes unrewarded from the universe. So let me practice that courageous expression with people, and my conviction will keep me safe because that's what I'm going for. It could even be as simple as, how do we feel when we react from a place of love, compassion, generosity, grace, forgiveness, versus how do we feel when we're in judgment, anger, fear, blame, contempt, right? Cynicism, criticism. Do we want to live from love? Do we want to live from fear? Do we take the idea that we are much more supported than we even realize? You know, I always think of Joseph Campbell, the comparative mythological scholar from America. And he basically said in 1988 or 1989, which was a radical idea back then, right? That when you follow your bliss, the whole Joseph Campbell Foundation is follow your bliss, and doors will open for you that you didn't even know could open. So Bill Moyers, who I think was a journalist for CNN at the time, he said to Joe, he said to Uncle Joe, Joseph, do you really believe that? And the look in Joseph Campbell's face when he just said, absolutely. And he said, like, I get emotional every time I think about it, because I could tell in his face and from his experience that he lives from this conviction. And he wants other people to know that they can too. Of course, they're supported. And then he said, invisible hands are always helping you. Right. And wow, what would we be doing if we could just know, oh, there's invisible hands helping me. If I follow my bliss, if I pursue my bliss, doors will open for me. The mentor appears, the hero's journey, et cetera, et cetera. Who would we be? What would we be doing? What quality of thinking, emotional responses would we have? And if you see Joseph Campbell light up when he says this, I dare you to not be convinced he's telling the truth. Because you're just like, oh yeah, duh, absolutely. And then how can we, because that's a hard thing to be thinking about right now, especially in 2021, the moments we've experienced together over the last 2 years, like having faith almost looks anti-intellectual, right? And what we want to do is hold our convictions and our values clear and say to other people, look, I know what I'm saying. I know it sounds crazy. I know how it may listen to you, right? But lean on my faith because I have so much to go around. Lean on my faith. I got you on this, right? If you don't have some, I'll hold you up on this, but we're going to do this together. Lean on mine. That's Neptune, that's convictions. So look in your astrology for where Neptune is in your chart, what house it's located in, what sign it's in, what aspects it's making. And you know what? I got to give it to astro-seek.com, because if you put in your natal chart and then you scroll down to Neptune, it will tell you what sign, what house, what aspects. You click on it, it tells you everything. You can have like a Neptune profile done for free. Okay, astro-seek.com, and it will tell you the real story, like, of your convictions, right? So to review, the sixth house is how you put these ideas into routine, into behavior. Neptune rules your quality of spiritual conviction, and Venus rules your quality of values. When you know your values and your convictions and you internalize them in a routine, a ritual, or a habit every day, it optimizes your response and your behavior in moments where we really need to have our response and behavior on lockdown, right? And so now we're going to have a chart moment. Rachel, you can unmute yourself and we can dialogue about this. Is that okay?
Oh my gosh. Can I just say, like, just for a moment, I know we're going to get into discussion with everyone else later, but I'm probably going to say what everyone else thinks. I'm becoming a bobblehead by how much I'm nodding my head. Like, this is just the most beautiful, like, presentation. All of the feels, all of the truths. Thank you. So,
Oh, thank you. That means so much to me because we workshop this in real time, right? So like this, we pulled this like a rabbit out of a hat only last week. Like, gotta love air sign strategy. So I'm so glad that this is connecting, and that means so much to me. Thank you.
yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that we could visually show you again, where we're getting this information from, and we're using Rachel's chart as an example here, right? So we could put this in real time. So something else that I think is really beautiful about astrology and connecting to, again, inclusivity and worthiness, is the reason why Rachel's natal chart looks this way is because this line that cuts the chart in half from left to right, that's the Earth's horizon, it's the Earth's hemisphere. And so the reason why the astrologer needs the time of birth, 3:52 p.m., and the location is to determine what was on the easternmost horizon the moment Rachel took her first breath, right? So just like the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, so do all the constellations of the zodiac. And that's what the rising sign is. It's the constellation that was on the easternmost horizon for an hour and 45 minutes before we went on to the next one, right? Now, this is inclusive because what I love about the rising sign is it shows that in one day, if we're doing the math correctly, in one day, every single zodiac sign will rise because it's only there for an hour and 45 minutes.
Mhm.
So if there's 12 zodiac signs and they're there for just about an hour and 45, 2 hours, then what does that mean? 24 hours in a day is completed when every single zodiac sign from Aries to Pisces has had their moment in the sun, has risen, has begun again. And I just think there's poetics to that. It's like, wow, am I invited to do the same thing? You better believe it, sister. Okay. So now with Rachel's astrology, we have Pisces at 0 degrees. Okay. So Rachel, something exciting on May 13th, next Thursday.
Ooh.
Yes, I think that's next Thursday. I know it's on Thursday because I just wrote the horoscope. I just don't know what date it is. Okay. And it could be Friday for you based on the fact that you're 6 hours ahead.
Right.
Right? I know. Thursday, Friday, Jupiter, the planet of success and expansion and wisdom, will enter your first house of self. And
Yes.
so, Rachel, your whole life is about to transform absolutely beautifully. Your pre-Jupiter return, You know, you're really living in your truth. You perceive your own best interests. So I just think you're gonna have a great time. I want you to know that.
Oh,
So
thank you. I love that. Oh, what a beautiful transit. Yeah.
yeah, oh, go absolutely, right? Which we get once every 11 and a half years. It's our Jupiter return and it's conjunct your
Yes.
ascendant. So when we're looking at Rachel's chart as an applied symbol of what we just discussed, Rachel's moon is in Gemini, Rachel's sun is in Libra. So as we said, Rachel's moon as a function of worthiness really utilizes Gemini curiosity, communication, comfort and contrast, bridge building, polarity management, perception accuracy, relational intelligence. It's not this, it's that, it's both. And it's stuff we don't even know that we don't even know it yet. Deal with it.
Yes.
So that's Rachel's moon. And then it's in Rachel's fourth house of emotional literacy and connection and family. So Rachel has a Gemini quality of freedom in her fourth house of home. So what does that mean? Rachel finds belonging in home essentially wherever she is. And if she feels like there's a soul home and a soul connection, she stays and she's very happy there, right? But the Gemini moon just loves to fly and experience and go to everything. And then in the fourth house, particularly around home, family, and emotional literacy. Now, the sun in Libra is in the eighth house. And so, what Rachel is here to do is move from the Gemini quality of there's so much to learn, there's so much to communicate, right? And synthesize it beautifully into a Libran ruled conversation around all things relational, diplomatic, socially conscious, in the eighth house of the subconscious mind, psychology, personal growth. When I see one planet in the eighth house, I'm like, what are you doing in the healing personal growth space?
Yes.
One. Okay. Rachel has three. So this
I love the eighth
confirmation.
house, by the way. I feel
Oh,
like I'm
you
on
do?
a mission to like, bring light and positivity to a lot of things. Like Gemini is one of them, the eighth house, Scorpio, Pluto, like these things that are sometimes demonized in astrology, but are so powerful and beautiful. Like,
So power. And then I think what Rachel's showing just in that statement was air levity
mhm.
to conversations and things that are feel really heavy and almost overwhelming, right? So absolutely, and you're doing that beautifully. And I think what you are applying with that Libran sensibility is I can show up to the eighth house where we have grief, heartbreak, despair, disappointment, setback, right? But I could also be the place of healing, empathy, compassion, generosity, connection, love, resilience, forgiveness. You know, it's the eighth house, like you know very well, is the space where shame and empathy are connected. You can't experience love if you're not willing to experience loss.
Mm.
And how all in we're into that is the eighth house. And I'm almost positive Darish has their son in the eighth house too, right, honey? I think you do. Yeah. So that's wild. You're both son of the eighth house Libras. Oh my God. And
Amazing.
so
Oh my
I
God.
think, yeah. So here we go again.
Yes,
Libra
it does.
connection.
Yeah. Very
See,
cool.
yeah, that's what I was like. I think we have another eighth house Libra sun here. And in the eighth house, it's all about let me be a personal change agent for you and let me hold a vision of what's possible for you in this lifetime. Right.
Mhm.
So Rachel's Venus is in Scorpio in the ninth house and it's retrograde, which we love. I have nothing against personal planets retrograde. So Rachel's values have to do with all things scorpionic, trust, a
Yeah.
power, right? How do we negotiate power?
I really resonated with that when you were like, I just put all these stars on my notes when you were talking about the Venus values. I immediately wrote down, like, to me, what comes through for Scorpio is like personal transformation, courage, and inner strength. And if
Yeah.
you find that, like you were talking about the polarity, I think that sometimes the idea of personal transformation seems like it's in polarity to inner strength, but I see the absolute connection there. So to me, that's like, that's the beautiful polarity of my values. I just love how you put that. I've never thought of that Venus that way. So
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. And that just gave me chills because I never would have even, because I don't have it. I only have my Pluto in Scorpio. So it's subconscious. I don't even really see it. But like when someone with a personal planet in Scorpio just bottom lines their energy like that, I'm like, yes. And if I was giving a reading to Rachel, I would say, please put that sensibility and that idea in every piece of work you have. Make
mm,
it really obvious and clear because that's not my Venus, so that's not where I'm meant to contribute. That's where Rachel's meant to contribute. Those are Rachel's values. So if Rachel puts those values in her work, in her marketing, in her services, in her approach, her tools, etc., then people feel it from a different level of gravitas And because we're honoring the nature of astrology, is it reasonable to assume that she's going to be, a failure at it? Absolutely not, because this is her nature. She has no choice but to go up. Same for all of us when we accept our natal charts as they are. Anything else to add about that, Rachel?
I was just going to say, I feel like this is such wonderful, like astrology, human design, these cosmic systems are just give us permission. Like exactly what you just said. It's like, it's confirmation of what we already feel inside and what's already important to us, but seeing it gives us the courage to then embody it. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I already felt that that was important to me, but like you said, putting it out in the marketing, put it, in a business context,
Yeah.
you've given me, and astrology has given me this permission to emphasize this important part of myself. So I love this, because a lot of the people in this group are, almost all of us are entrepreneurs. So this is another beautiful lens of how to make the personal the communal as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then what you're kind of telling all of us is that if the key outcome for everything we offer people is anything other than self acceptance, what are we doing?
Yes.
It is all about that. Let me be a mirror for you and just accidentally confirm what I didn't even know that you needed to be confirmed. And if you feel self accepted from that place, you're going to be creative, you're going to be confident, you're going to be connected because you're not pretending, performing, people pleasing, numbing, false compartmentalizing, perfecting, none of that. You have total worthiness there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll
Great.
go over Rachel's midheaven as well, because I know that was a key point. So Rachel's midheaven is Sagittarius, so naturally an international businesswoman, baby. Okay. Sag is all about the international, okay, and just finding cross-cultural evaluation and opening up doors and offices. Hey, what are you learning? That's so cool. I like human design, astrology, all these things. This is the multidisciplinary seeker, right? Which I really love too, because in an era of like, no, you can only be a one-trick pony, which I can't help but feel like that's where we're moving, and then like to the detriment, right? Sagittarius rising is like, no, it's this, it's that, it's things we don't even know, it's what this person's going to tell me that I can't wait to hear. And if I'm just a space of this collaborative possibility, where can we go if I bring all these experts together?
Mhm. Mhm.
Beautiful. So any questions about that, Rachel? Any
I was just
confirmation?
gonna say, I love that you are honoring the midheaven in this way as well. And I know we really connected on Instagram over the midheaven as well. It was just a beautiful confirmation, because I really look up to you as an astrological mentor as well, to say that yes, this is such an important point in the chart. And I just really connected to what you said earlier about it being, what did I write? The direct connection to our God-given gifts. So this is such a powerful part of the chart, and I just want more people to like see this and hear this and learn about it. So
Yes, yes. And you know what, Rachel, I'm glad you're confirming this, because most people think work is the sixth house only. And I'm like,
really, no. I don't.
really? No, we just said so. Okay. According to Colin and Rachel, no, get a new book. That's not true. I know. I think it's 10th house. It's the
Yeah,
midheaven.
yeah, of course, yeah. To me, that's obvious. But
Duh, water is
I
wet.
always say your day-to-day routine and health and work in terms of your day-to-day routine is the sixth house, but the 10th
Yeah.
is career. And then of course the midheaven coming into it is like how you're seen, your reputation, right?
Yeah, the sole purpose. You said
Yeah,
it gorgeously. Yeah, how you're seen in the it's the world stage, right?
yeah.
And so when we have strong 10th house energy, which you do, Sun conjunct your midheaven, and then you have Uranus there opposite your Chiron, you take on these energies and archetypes. So if you want to know like who am I and the force of work, look no further than your midheaven, right?
Mhm.
And so Rachel is a teacher, a philosopher, a conversation facilitator, a disruptor, a truth teller, a visionary, an educator, leading people out of ignorance, right? And giving them a collaborative approach that's rooted in a worldview of generous assumptions and strong collaboration skills.
Oh my God. Can I put that on my website? You're amazing. This is like the biggest like boost to my heart. Thank
Well, it's just wild. And it's like, here we are, you're American, but I'm talking in the UK. We have a gorgeous quality of diversity here. Like, this is your Sag midheaven in action, honey.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And then we'll go. So we cover the moon, the sun, the midheaven, Venus. We'll cover Neptune and the rising. And then we'll open it up to questions or anything else that you guys want to talk about. So let me just make sure, because it says the screen share. Yeah. So you have a Neptune in Capricorn, as do most people born in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And so for Rachel and anyone else who has this position, these are folks who actually want their spiritual convictions to be very, very grounded in practical application.
It
Okay.
makes so much sense because this is actually what people say to me. Like, this wasn't something I saw myself. This is something that was reflected back to me, which I think actually illustrates the nature of Neptune anyway.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like not something I'm super aware of, but like something that other people see. And then I'm like, oh, okay, the veil is like thinned now. I get it.
Yes, right. And for you, I think with Neptune and Capricorn, Neptune being the ruler of your chart because you're Pisces rising. So the planet that rules the rising sign then rules the entire astrology. So Neptune is Rachel's chart ruler. And yeah, I think that where people really connect with you is that you have the vision, you have the idea, you have the conversation, you have the facilitation, and then you have the education that says, and here's how you put it into applied behavior and aptitude and skill.
Mm, mm.
Because if we're just yapping about it and not actually not actually
Yep.
putting it into practical real world operationalized skilled up conversations, it is ultimately unimportant, it's meaningless, and that's Neptune and Capricorn too.
Yeah, that's definitely me. That's definitely me.
And
Mhm.
for spirituality as well, Rachel, I think if you can help others, because Capricorn is all about responsibility, especially in the parts that they played that have created complicated outcomes. I definitely want you to be a space holder that says, okay, even if 97% were other people, what's the 3% we need to talk about?
Oh my gosh. Well, this is why I'm a coach, and some of my clients are here as well. So it's the
Ah,
idea
I'll
of,
tell you.
yeah, taking personal responsibility is really important to me in my own life, but also like helping to show that lens and reflection for my clients as well, because that's where the empowerment is, right?
Yes, because we can only transform what we take 100% responsibility for. Otherwise, we're at hostile dependence of those things.
Yeah, that's a
Right.
beautiful way of. We just learned about Capricorn last week, so that's a lovely additional lens. The idea of personal responsibility, very Capricornian, especially
Very
we have all our
Capricorn.
Capricorn moons here.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why we're like, we love this. Yes. No, tell us what we need to take ownership over so we
Yeah.
can transform it. Okay. But that's what Capricorn is, like problem identification. Let's go there. Right. And it's not your problem. You're a fuck up. None of that. It's just no, let's own whatever part needs to be cleaned up, please. Right. Because personal responsibility is how we transform. And then on a grander scale too, Rachel, if you think about how you can offer teams, leadership, groups, coalitions, political movements, insight into accountability, responsibility, and transformative justice.
Mm.
Like I'm a Capricorn stellium, and one of the things that I find really fascinating in America is the growing conversation around reparations for descendants of the enslaved.
Yes.
And I'm like,
Yes.
that is so Capricorn,
Yeah.
right? It's like America and other countries committed 400 years worth of crimes against humanity for against the enslaved as enslavers. What economic and political restitution needs to be made immediately so
Mm.
that we can own what needs to be owned, apply financial force where appropriate, and really do the heavy lifting, just like the Germans did with the newly liberated Jews,
Yeah.
just like the descendants of the Japanese internment camp survivors received from Ronald Reagan, of all people.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I always think about, wow, reparations is a Capricorn ruled quality.
I like
Like
that. That makes a lot of
payment for a debt that is owed.
sense. Yes.
Okay. But anyway, enough about me and that.
I
We're going
love.
to go to the Pisces rising quality. And so all of what we just said is filtered through the Pisces rising. So we talked about grounded, complicated, necessary, levity, psychological stuff, all filtered through a compassionate, radiant, magnetic Pisces rising, right? And there is this quality where Pisces rising cannot help but disarm people. Pisces rising cannot help but make other people feel safe, seen, heard, cherished, and understood. There is this energy too. I've experienced this because my best friend has this rising sign where she can create a space unlike anything I've ever experienced.
Wow.
Like just such a container of, okay, so what's the emotion here? How does that make you feel? What do you think the learning is here? What do you need in this moment? Do you need joy? Do you need laughter? What can I do and be for you in this moment? Like you want to talk about space and seeing people? That's all Pisces because it's water. It cannot, and Pisces is the most reflecting water sign,
Yeah.
right? So they cannot help but reflect what other people kind of receive and project upon them, and then they are just prolific space holders as descendants of Neptune. And
Oh,
so you're in a work where you both challenge and support. Back to the polarity piece.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Anything
Yeah.
to share
I
or
love
add?
that. That's really interesting. I think that's a lovely also reframe of some of the kind of more, I guess, challenging aspects of the Pisces. Because sometimes I've thought to myself, oh, does this mean people think I'm too nice? But actually, you've reframed it in such a lovely way, which is, this is about having that compassionate space so that
Yes.
the personal transformation, the depths, the inner strength, the challenge of personal responsibility can come through. That's a great way.
Yeah. And I think we need security and a level of compassion and empathy to talk about trauma, to
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about shame, to talk about serious things in our lives. If people don't feel, and I just learned this on one of Brené's podcasts, that care for and affection to are irreducible requirements for leadership. So if you do
Ooh,
not
yeah.
care for or have affection with the people who you are holding space for, you
Mhm.
are many things, but you are not a leader.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Preach. Yes, yes, yes.
Brene, okay. But
The best. This is the best. We're the Brene Brown fan club right here.
I know. That's essentially what I am. I'm Brene Brown's de facto unofficial astrologer.
I
Okay.
love it, but you take these high concepts and you make them so practical and you give us the stories and you give us the context and the language to understand them. So I just appreciate you so much. Thank you, Colin.
Oh, please, Rachel, the honor was all mine. So I believe that's the end of the presentation. Yes, indeed. So I'll hit stop sharing. And then we have, I think, about 15 minutes now to talk about whatever folks want to talk about.
Yes.
Open to any and all feedback. And I hope that this was clarifying for the people that are here watching in real time and those who will watch later.
Yes, perfect. Oh my God, incredible. I just want you all.
Oh, I found it. I found it. Okay, you guys ready?
Yes.
Okay. So Aries says, teach me how to be. And Libra says, and be aware. Taurus, teach me how to have. Scorpio, and to share. Gemini, teach me to understand. Sagittarius, as well as know. Cancer, teach me how to root. And Capricorn, how to grow. Leo, teach me how to love. Aquarius says, and to be free. Virgo says, to be of service. And Pisces says, and to come to thee.
Hmm.
Ugh, I'm gonna cry.
I
Damn
know that's
it.
so
Beautiful.
perfect. So beautiful. Steph says, just got the chills. Me too. Oh my gosh. This has been the most incredible container. I don't even know what to call it. A talk, a workshop, just like a truth sharing circle. Like, thank you,
Yeah, a
Colin.
community circle.
You're incredible. Like, I just can't say that enough. You have to tell us, like, is there anything you have coming up? How can we connect with you if people want to get readings? Like, tell us all that before we close. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yes. Thank you. This was such a joy. It was so confirming. Thank you, everybody, for your feedback and your questions and guiding me in things I need to do more work on. So thank you for that. So where you can find me is queercosmos.com, and I'm going to be opening up my one-on-one readings this spring, summer. And I also have the 3 books out that Rachel said, so you can buy those and help me pay my student loans. And then also, I am very pleased, but like I have to keep it on the low, that I'm going to be doing a daily horoscope show with iHeartRadio. So yeah,
Woo!
so
Congratulations.
thank you. And so I just got the microphone and all this shit.
Perfect.
So catch me over here. And so I'll be doing that once on a daily. So, and I think it comes out on my birthday on May 24th.
Yes. Oh my God. So many things to look forward to. Thank you.
Yes.
That's
No, and thank you, Rachel. This was your community. What an honor. They're phenomenal. This was such a joy. Anything I can do to support any of you, please let me know. I'll come back anytime. You can't get rid of me now.
oh, brilliant. Brilliant. Like I said, pinch me moment. Thank you so much. You're just amazing. I love it. I love it.
Likewise. This was so lovely,
Well,
Rachel. You're wonderful.
yes, and I will save the recording and I can send you a link if you would like it, Colin,
Love
and I will also put the full recording in our small group and then I'll cut it and put the workshop part in the Facebook group. So
Hey.
everyone needs to hear this. Everyone needs to understand the astrology of worthiness. Like this is just pure love. Yes.
Yay. Well, this was so much fun. Thank you, Rachel. Good luck, everybody, and stay in touch, okay?
Yes, definitely. Love you all. Bye.